It happened one warm evening at the gates of Stonehaven Estates, a quiet neighborhood in Tempe, Arizona, where order mattered more than kindness. The desert sky glowed gold and purple as Maurice Dunley pulled up in his SUV, exhausted after a long day as a software consultant. He lived just 3 blocks inside those gates, a homeowner for nearly a decade, proud of the peace he'd built for his wife Tanya and their daughter. But peace wasn't what waited for him that night. "Excuse me, sir," a sharp voice called out. Maurice turned, keys in hand. Walking briskly toward him was Janice Kettleman, 61, her silver hair twisted into a tight bun, an HOA badge pinned proudly to her cardigan like a badge of law. "Be a gentleman and open that gate for me," she ordered. "I left my access card at home." Maurice gave a patient sigh. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but HOA policy says we can't let anyone in without a card or security clearance. You'll have to call the guard station." Janice blinked as if she'd been insulted. "Excuse me? I've lived here for 12 years. I'm on the board. You're really going to stand there and not let me in?" "Rules apply to everyone," Maurice replied calmly. "I'm not risking a fine." Her cheeks reddened. "You're being difficult. You don't get to decide who belongs here." He tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "Exactly why I'm following the rule, ma'am. It's not personal." But to Janice, it was very personal. Her authority had been challenged, and by someone she decided didn't belong. "If you won't help," she snapped, "I'll call the police." Maurice almost laughed. "You're calling 911 because I followed the rules?" She didn't answer. Her thumb was already dialing. Miles away, in a dispatch center lit by harsh fluorescent lights, Tanya Ridgemont adjusted her headset. The night had been long, car crashes, domestic disputes, routine calls, but the next voice in her ear froze her blood. "There's a man blocking me from entering my neighborhood," Janice said breathlessly. "African American, mid-40s. Acting suspicious." Tanya's pen stopped mid-note. "African American, mid-40s, Stonehaven Estates." Her heart slammed against her ribs. That was Maurice, her husband. She forced her tone steady. "Ma'am, you said the man's blocking your entry? Has he threatened you?" "Not in words," Janice huffed, "but his attitude is threatening enough." Tanya clenched her jaw. She knew that voice, that tone, accusation wrapped in fear and entitlement. But protocol demanded calm, so she logged the call and dispatched units. Inside, she prayed her husband would keep his composure. At the gate, Maurice leaned against his SUV, shaking his head. He'd read about stories like this. He just never expected to star in one. Minutes later, flashing blue and red lights painted the stucco walls as officers Glenn Ortega and Rachel Bowers arrived. "That's him," Janice cried, waving dramatically. "He refused to let me in. He's been loitering." Maurice kept his hands visible, his driver's license between his fingers. "Evening, officers," he said evenly. "Name's Maurice Dunley. I live right here on Amberwood Drive. She asked me to open the gate without ID. I said no." Ortega examined his license and nodded. "Checks out." Janice bristled. "You're just taking his word for it?" "State-issued ID, ma'am," Maurice replied dryly. Inside the dispatch center, Tanya's headset crackled with every word. Her husband's voice, calm, steady, filled her ears. Relief mixed with rage. She couldn't speak, couldn't intervene. But she typed into her notes quietly, caller statement inconsistent. Subject cooperative. At the gate, neighbors began peeking from their porches as Janice's voice rose. "He's making me uncomfortable. Is that not enough?" Officer Bowers stepped forward. "Feeling uncomfortable isn't the same as being in danger, ma'am. 911 is for emergencies." Janice's voice shook. "So I'm being punished for trying to protect myself?" Maurice exhaled, his patience stretched thin. "Protect yourself from what?" "From being told no." The crowd murmured. A young man whispered, "She really called the cops for this?" Tanya listened as Ortega reported back. "No threat observed. Caller claims intimidation, no evidence." She felt relief flood her chest, but she knew it wasn't over. Janice's pride wouldn't allow her to walk away. "You can't just let him go." Janice barked. People like him. She caught herself, but the words hung heavy in the desert air. Silence rippled through the crowd. Morris's voice came low and sharp. People like me? You mean homeowners? Fathers? Professionals? Or do you mean something else? The weight of the moment settled like dust. Ortega's tone turned stern. Ma'am, calling 911 for non-emergencies is misuse of public services. Consider this a warning. Janice's face drained of color. You're siding with him? We're siding with the law, Officer Bowers said. You could have called security. Instead, you escalated it. A woman from the crowd spoke up. Janice, you fine people for letting others in without ID. You wanted him to break that rule. The crowd murmured louder. Janice's authority crumbled before her eyes. Maurice stayed calm. This didn't have to go this far, he said softly. Next time, ask like a neighbor, not an accuser. Back at dispatch, Tanya finally exhaled, tears she couldn't show slipping down her face. Her husband was safe. The call was logged. But she knew this story wasn't done. The next morning, videos from the gate flooded social media. A neighbor's phone had captured everything. Janice's shouting, Morris's calm restraint, and her fateful phrase, people like him. Comments exploded. She needs to resign. He handled it better than I ever could. By noon, the HOA's group chat was on fire. Neighbors demanded Janice's removal. Even HOA President Gerald Miles texted her, "You need to step down." The videos are everywhere. Janice slammed her laptop shut. They twisted everything. But denial couldn't erase what the cameras caught. Meanwhile, in the Dunley home, Maurice sat at the kitchen table with Tanya and their daughter. He scrolled through comments, shaking his head. I didn't want to go viral, he said quietly. Tanya reached for his hand. You didn't go viral. The truth did. Their daughter looked up. Daddy, why did that lady call the police on you? Maurice smiled gently. Because sometimes people make quick judgments without really knowing someone. But what matters is how you respond. She nodded, going back to her drawing. That evening, Janice stormed into the HOA clubhouse, demanding to defend herself. Gerald looked up from a stack of papers. Janice, this isn't the time. I was protecting our community, she insisted. The video was taken out of context. Elaine, another board member, frowned. We all saw it. You called 911 because a man followed the rules. That's not protection, it's prejudice. The words hit like a hammer. For once, Janice had no retort. She left quietly, her authority shattered. In the days that followed, Maurice walked his daughter to the bus stop. Neighbors waved, some murmuring words of support. One mother stopped him. We showed our son that video. Told him that's what calm under pressure looks like. Maurice smiled. That means a lot. Tanya heard similar things at work, colleagues admitting they'd have believed Janice's version if they hadn't seen the footage. It made her realize how easily perception shapes truth. One night on the porch, Tanya handed Maurice a mug of tea. You did everything right, she said. You showed her dignity is stronger than accusation. Maurice gave a weary smile. Still feels like I had to prove I belong in my own neighborhood. Tanya squeezed his hand. You proved something bigger. You showed our daughter what strength looks like. A week later, Janice's resignation email arrived. 2 sentences, no apology. The neighborhood breathed easier. Her silence spoke louder than any speech could. Life in Stonehaven Estates returned to its manicured calm, but something had shifted. People waved a little longer. Conversations carried more thought. At the dispatch center, Tanya sat beneath the fluorescent lights, her headset snug once more. She thought about that call, how one false accusation could have gone differently. It's scary, she told Maurice later that night. How one phone call can define someone. Then we live, he said, in a way that tells our story before anyone else can. And that's the truth that lingered long after the videos stopped trending. Dignity is louder than accusation, and truth, when held with calm and courage, always finds its way to the surface. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And let's keep the conversation going.